Karen, could I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Louis,
Present.
Councilmember Halleck,
Present.
Councilmember Shirley. Here. Councilmember Ragsdale Cronin,
Here.
Mayor Donaldson.
Here, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is public comment. General public comment must deal with matters subject to the jurisdiction of the city and the council that are not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. There'll be a time limit of 3 minutes for each speaker. Public comment is now over.
Very good. Public speaking is not my favorite thing to do. Good evening, my name is Ann Auburn, I live on Worth Avenue. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Sustainable Del Rio. Sustainable Del Rio with the invitation for our community's leaders and all Del Rio's residents to our upcoming April activities. On April 6th at 9 a.m., we are pleased to offer Fort Worth Wildflower Walk with Dr. Dorothy Denning, author of a recently released book called Fort Ord, A Love Story. We are partnering with Sustainable Seaside and Sustainable Marina on this special event. Dr. Denning is highlighting the wildflowers and many other discoveries on this 4-mile hike. There are flyers on the front table, and please make a reservation. As you may know, the Butterfly Garden next up to my gardens was created in 2019 in partnership with the city and a grant from the Monterey Regional Storm Water Management Program. Its purpose is to raise awareness about the importance of pollinators to our food systems and our ecosystem. The challenges they face due to habitat loss and climate change make pollinator protection high priority. We look forward to working with TAMC on the next evolution of the garden. The winter rains have brought on a lot of weeds, and on April 13th at 10 o'clock, we're doing the first spring cleaning. It's the second Saturday of every month, and everyone's welcome to join us. 4 years ago, Delray DSRO brought Earth Day to Delray Oaks and has hosted celebrations each year since, partnering with peninsula organizations along with fun educational activities for the entire family. Last year, we collaborated with the city and CAG, who held their ice cream social on the same day. We're proud the city has recognized the importance of ongoing environmental education and sustainable practices by supporting Earth Day this year on April 20th and from noon to 2 o'clock. Please come to our table where we'll share information about becoming an earth-friendly household and start making positive differences on our local environment. We'd like to give a special thanks to Karen Manuni, who has linked up SDRO to the city website. In closing, we appreciate the work the council and city staff do to protect our green spaces and encourage a healthy community. We stand alongside you to continue to inspire our community to embrace sustainable practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none. Our next item, we have 2 proclamations. The first one is for our local soccer team, FC Monterey Bay, that was recognized as the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year Award winner for 2023. The other proclamation that we have is for Women's History Month, and I'm honored that Council Member Shirley will read that for us.
You do that. Proclamation, City of Del Rio, celebrating March 2024 Women's Health History Month. Whereas March is National Women's History Month, and whereas we recognize the invaluable contributions of women who have dedicated themselves to advocating for equity, diversity, and inclusion in all aspects of society. And whereas women from diverse backgrounds have long been at the forefront of efforts to address systemic inequities and promote a more inclusive and just society. And whereas the courageous advocacy of women for practical goals such as equity, diversity, and inclusion serves as a beacon of inspiration for all individuals and communities. And whereas in 2024, we honor the women who have tirelessly worked to dismantle barriers, challenge prejudices, and create opportunities for all individuals, regardless of their background, and attacks against diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and training in our institutions. Now, therefore, it be resolved that Mayor Scott Donaldson do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Women's History Month in the city of Del Rios. And be it further resolved that we encourage our communities to celebrate the achievements of women who have championed equity, diversity, and inclusion, and reaffirm our commitment to advancing these principles in our society. Let us honor the women who have dedicated themselves to advocating for equity, diversity, and inclusion, and let us continue to work together to build a more just, equitable, and inclusive world. Signed this day, the 26th of March, 2020.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a presentation from California American Water, and we have with us Josh Stratton. Josh, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here.
You should be able to share.
Requested to share. Oh, got it. That's great. Good to have an engineer with you at all times. Okay, thank you, everybody. My name is Josh Stratton. I'm the manager of external affairs for California American Water. It's Tim O'Halloran, who's the engineering manager for California American Water, and we're here to talk about the Montesquieu Water Supply Project. Also known as in part the desalination project, which you've all heard so much about. Just a little key bit of background real quickly is the origin of this was a 2008 regional project in collaboration with Monterey County Water Resources Agency and Rainbow Water District developed a site and location. That project was a test well that was done. The EIR was done, it's a regional project. That project fell apart, fast forward a decade or so. Because of the drought, doesn't need for more water. We moved forward with the project on our own, moderating the water project. Today, we wish to give a little update on that. So Callahan's infrastructure, so we're part of the central part of the microphone. Turn on.
Keep going.
Keep going, okay, just speak up. Speak up a little bit, okay, but yeah, all right. So California, we're located here in Central Road, we're a local company. We have one of the most complex water systems in the state, due to topography. This is a very mountainous, spread out region. It's large. We have water supply challenges here, as we're all aware of. We're all based here. We have about 40,000 connections, California American Water here, which serves about 100,000 customers. So it's quite a large organization. We have about 680 miles of pipes and infrastructure. which again is very complex, more than most other. So water tank, storage tanks. And we have more importantly, we have about 95 employees here locally. We're all members of the community. We're out there every day, every night. So when we're on vacation, when we're Christmas time, you name it, you know, our people are out there fixing these our infrastructure. Every day of the year. And we provide water safely and reliably to all of our customers. I mentioned the size and the complexity of our system. This map indicates. This map indicates the size of our system, so you can see it goes from Pebble Beach, Pacific Grove, Carmel, Monterey, Carmel Valley, Delray Oaks, Seaside, Sand City, and we even have some satellite systems out in some of the other areas around Salinas. We have wastewater treatment plants around in the area as well. It covers multiple basins, as you can kind of see under the picture there, we have multiple areas that cover throughout the county. So water supply constraints is kind of to the crux of it here. I think we're all aware that this is a wholly inclusive system. And what I mean by that is we hear about the Sierra Snowpack. We don't benefit from the Sierra Snowpack. We don't benefit from, as you've heard locally, you know, the state in the west, there's a lot of litigation and talk about the Colorado River. We don't benefit from that either. All the water that we have here, all of course, from by ourselves. We have to recycle it, treat it, capture it, and manage it very well, which I think we've all, as a community, we've done a great job of managing our water sources. So historically, our water came from the Carmel River solely. And then as population has ballooned over the last few years and drought has increased, we've had to reduce our reliance on the Carmel River, which we have, and it sort of tapered off until ultimately a couple years ago, we hit our base, but we're not allowed to capture more than a certain level of water from the Carmel River every year. We also work with the Seaside Basin as well, capturing water. We had to do a very transformational project to basically reverse the flow of our system, where rather than relying solely on the Carmel River and piping the water northbound, if you will, northwest, we actually had to reverse it. So now we have the capability of pumping from the Carmel River, also from the Seaside Basin. So we now have reversed that system, a very complex change. So we have current supplies right now. We have about 8,500 acre feet a year that we as our current supplies that we have to rely upon now. We're demanding about 9,000 acre feet per year. So as I mentioned before, you know, we have to capture this ourselves. We've been fortunate the last couple of years to have, or this year and last year, to have quite a bit of rain, but that's not consistent and something we can rely upon. We need a reliable source of water, and that is the ocean. And so, so this project will help provide current and future demand, so we can file RENA obligations that I'm sure every municipality is aware of, the housing requirements from the state and housing desires to house our community. So we're going to be able to provide that with this project. So I'll hand it off to Tim now.
All right. Thank you. So this slide illustrates our historic, current, and future water sources. So as Josh indicated, historically, the majority of our water came from Carmel River. With the Order 9510 reduction, we've reduced that considerably. And we also face similar constraints on the Seaside Basin adjudication. So our current sources are, you know, quite a diverse set of water supply sources. Pure Water Monterey, Sand City Desal, Carmel River, ASR, and Seaside Basin. And the future sources, as Josh indicated, this current source does not meet our demand without good, you know, really good ASR season. So it's really drought dependent. So future sources are Pure Water Monterey expansion, desal, and expansion of the ASR system. So this illustrates kind of new water supply projects in the last decade or so, ASR, expansion of ASR. And just to illustrate what ASR does, we extract excess winter flows when the Carmel River meets a certain stage. And we treat that water in our Begonia iron removal plant in Carmel Valley. We ship it over to the Seaside Basin where it's injected. And that's a partnership project with the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. And then also we have this N-City desal project and Pure Water Monterey. So Pure Water Monterey, as you know, is purified water that M1W injects into the Seaside Basin, and we extract it and put it into our distribution system. As Josh indicated, our water operations have really changed in the last 5 years, shifting most of the production from Carmel to Seaside Basin. So we constructed the Monterey Pipeline, which takes that seaside water over to the Forest Lake reservoirs for distribution. So it really, changed the operation, completely changed the direction completely of our water system. So the water supply project, just kind of an overview of what the project is. This map kind of shows you the basics of the project. We have the transfer pipeline, shown in blue, which will connect our Monterey system in Seaside to the desal plant, located up near the Waste Management District facility. This also shows our slant wells, which are to be constructed on the CEMEX site. And then, so the slant wells extract mainly seawater. It's treated at the desal plant, and the brine is discharged and mixed in the effluent of M1W. We're currently going through studies for the NPDES permit for that discharge. And it's really a environmentally sustainable way to handle the brine. So we have a series of diffusers on the discharge on the M1W outfall, mile-long outfall. The diffusers disperse the brine to minimize impacts and meet ocean plan compliance. Let's see, so this is a rendering of the desal facility. So as you're traveling up Charles Benson Road, this is on the left-hand side at the top of the hill by the stop sign. In November of 2022, we received Coastal Commission approval for the project with 20 special conditions. And so we've been diligently working on these 20 special conditions. Some of the significant ones, the NPDES permit that I indicated, also improvements to the outfall that we will be responsible for, M1W will construct, and we're working through all of those issues. And then dune habitat, open space protection. So that mitigates our temporary construction impacts and also permanent impacts. So about a half acre of permanent impacts on the CEMEX site. As far as the design of the project, so we are basing the project, and that's what the Coastal Commission approves, a 4.8 MGD project initially. So we're looking at value engineering on the design of the desal plant, as well as the well field and slant wells, as well as pipelines. So we're looking at some realignments to cut costs on the pipeline. All of those efforts are currently underway with our design teams, and we expect to have those out to bid in 2025. And as far as cost savings, in addition to value engineering, we have one grant secured, we have commitment for SRF funding, and we're looking for additional grant opportunities. And as far as the schedule for the project, so as I indicated, late 2022, we got coastal approval. We're working through those 20 conditions of approval, and we expect to be complete in October of 2025 and be able to start construction during the non-snowy clover season. So yeah, October through March is the season of construction. And then that would be about a 24-month construction duration. And then in addition to that, part of our water portfolio, Pure Water Monterey expansion, we're constructing 4 new extraction wells in the Seaside Basin to take advantage of that additional water. And that concludes our presentation, so we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you very much for that presentation. Now, first off, I'd like to allow the council to ask any questions or provide any comments. And I'll start with Councilmember Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. Thank you, Mr. Stoddard and Mr.
Oh, Halloran.
Halloran. Thank you for the presentation this evening and providing us with the historical, current, and future roadmap as per CalAM's perspective in meeting our regional water demands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shirley.
Yes, thank you, Tim and Josh, for your presentation. You didn't mention cost for this plan, and I know you've been planning this for a while. Can you talk about the cumulative costs that you see, this plant being and who might pay for those costs?
We're still working on the cost for the project. These components were originally put out to bid before the project was kind of on hiatus. So as I indicated, we'll put those out to bid in 2025. So once we complete our value engineering on the pipelines, the pipeline alignment, sizes, the desal plant, we'll be able to put those out to bid and get an accurate cost estimate for the project.
Do you anticipate having to go back to the CPUC?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. We know that we have the most expensive water, and this plant will only make it more expensive, because I'm assuming the ratepayers are gonna be the ones who are gonna be paying for this cost. I did have an issue with, you stated that our current use was 9,500 acre feet per year, which my understanding is that we were just a little over 9,000 per a year, and so that's over 400 acre feet difference, which is a big difference when you're talking about water. Historically, that's the amount of water that we've grown with, and so something that you also didn't mention is that the CPUC is trying to decide what our water demands will be in the future. I know with the expansion, we'll get another 2,250 acre feet, which would put us over 11,000, which would certainly meet the demands. So I was wondering if you could speak to the demands and what this, you didn't also mention what the desal would provide us in terms of water. So I'm wondering if you can expand on that a little bit, what it's gonna provide us and why we need it.
Yeah. So the 4.8 million gallon per day plant is somewhere around 5,000 acre feet per year. Yeah, you're correct. The Public Utilities Commission is in the process of updating the supply and demand, and we had hearings a couple of weeks ago were concluded, and we look forward to their determination, and that is one of the 20 conditions, is Public Utilities Commission concluding that this plan is necessary. But yeah, we feel, the plant's absolutely necessary. We, we can meet customer demand today and next year, but it's kind of dependent on stored ASR water in the Seaside Basin. And if we have an extended drought period where that water isn't there, we have a tough time meeting demand. And so the supply and demand analysis that the Public Utilities Commission is evaluating is looking at the community's demand in 2050, right? It takes forever to get a project like this, permitted, conducting the EIR, acquiring land and everything. It takes forever, right? So this is a long-range project, a long-term project. Yeah, so 2050 demand, we're looking at, increased water needs for members of our community. We've been under this water restriction, extreme restrictions for decades. And so our demand projections look at a 10% increase for existing customers to, be able to expand their gardens or, do additional landscaping, things like that. And that seems like a reasonable figure. And then, the communities have reached out, and Del Rio's included on the legal lots of record. So we have these lots, these undeveloped or underdeveloped properties all over the peninsula that have just been stagnant, haven't been able to expand the uses, add bathrooms. So that, those elements, as well as the need for affordable housing, are a majority of the demand, that we see in the next 20 years, 10 years.
I know water is expensive and it will only get more expensive with this project. I know in my house, I'm yelling at my kids, like 10-minute showers, because, we've got a $200 water bill. So I can't imagine, having them take very long showers, because then my water bill's just gonna go up like that, so in terms of demand, just because there's more water, historically we've been decreasing our demand, and so, I have a hard time with that. The other thing I want to bring up is that, this plant's in Marina, and the city of Marina is not supportive of this plant, and this is, they get all of the negative effects of this and none of the positives. And so, in terms of environmental costs, they're stuck with a lot there without getting, again, these benefits.
The plant's actually in county. Unincorporated, it's in county.
Well, but along their beach there,
Well, the
That's
slat
Marina.
walls, yeah, the slat walls are located.
in Marina. Yeah. So, again, this is nothing personal, Tim and Josh, I like you guys, thank you, but, this is not a project that I support, so I just wanted to.
Can I chime in on a couple things? If you don't
Absolutely.
mind?
Sure.
So as far as affordability goes, CalAm has some of the most robust low-income housing, low-income provider systems in the state. Other utilities that come to us for our footprint, our blueprint on how we do our low-income. So for low-income customers, we have very robust programs to help them. And the site, if you go back to the regional project many years ago, was actually selected in collaboration with Rainbow Water District. And because of the work we're going to do to remediate the Senex site, so you talk about access to the beach, there's currently no access to the beach there. You can, through certain areas you can get there. We're going to remediate that heavy industrial site, the wayfinding paths, we're going to do a lot of work. It's going to benefit the city. And by all means, we would love to provide water to Marina, provide more benefit to Marina. They chose not to at this point. As part of our conditions, we also are going to have an employee, full-time employee. We're going to pay for the city, we're going to monitor every step of the process along here to make sure that they're okay with what we're doing. And also say that the responsible water utility, I think it's a smart thing, because there's so much debate and discussion about how much water we need. It's a very gray area, depending, you talk to one person one day, and you don't really know for sure. Because of that, as a responsible water utility, we feel like we need to have a drop-proof water supply for our customers, for our community, and that's why we feel we need to move forward, and the coast commission, and approval of our project, discussed this that way, and they too agreed that we need this additional source of water.
As long as you meet all these conditions,
Right.
so. Yeah, again, I would love a water source, I wanna fill that seaside basin, right? I hear you, I'm just not sure if this is the project to do it, so, thank you for being here.
All right, Councilmember Ragsdale Cronin.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. Nice presentation. So I was involved with the Pure Water Monterey project way back when it was first conceptualized. And now it's reality and the expansion is underway, waiting on parts, basically. Two questions or a couple of them. One is I'm really having a hard time reconciling the difference between your company's estimates on water demand in 2050, I think it is, and Monterey Peninsula Water Management. If it were something closer, you could go, okay, it's a different way of calculating, but we're light years apart. So I'm having a difficult time reconciling with that. I've been around wastewater my entire life. I understand how it works. I understand Pure Water Monterey is not a gallon in, gallon out. I have never been opposed to a desal plant. I have been opposed to this one. 5,000 acre feet is just way off the charts too big. It's way more than your losses. We managed to get through some pretty severe droughts. We know, we know, however you want to phrase it, that water consumption drops as price goes up. I saw it at the treatment plant. Your rates go up, our flows went down. It's just a reality of life. It's a curve that just drops away from each other. So as water gets more and more expensive, people are gonna use less and less. So at 10%, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't use 10% more water if it was available. I can't afford it. The flat can't afford it. So I think that number may be a bit skewed. I would love to see Calian come back with, say, 1,000 or so acre foot plant, or a series of smaller plants scattered across around the coast. One, minimizing the brine impact, and we all know brine is really bad for oceans. You gotta really mix it good to keep it so it doesn't settle on the bottom. But maybe some smaller, like the Sand City plant, it takes the brackish water out of that little bowl there by the seaside treatment or pump station. But small little peaker plants that you could bring online as necessary versus a giant plant that's gonna run, and then, so you're gonna build this thing, you're gonna run it, you're not gonna wanna let it sit idle. So then is that gonna offset what you would buy from Pure Water Monterey? Is that what you're not gonna pull in from ASR? Once you get, as Tim said, eventually the seaside basin would get filled. You're gonna have a huge bank of, I don't want to say excess, available water, because you want to bank water for droughts. I'm just concerned that this thing's just flat too big. Well, yeah, and I honestly can't, sorry, I just can't support it at 5,000 feet a year. That's just humongous.
But the thing is, there's a lot to say, just briefly, we mentioned on the slide earlier about the season system of the Cumberland River. Only last year where we hit the bottom, we were allowed to pull out excess water from the Cumberland River and taper it off over the years. We're now maxed out, so we can't fill out that water anymore. So that's a source that's gone away. We're already some of the trickiest water users in the state here because of all the reasons you mentioned. So the concept of conserving more, we have very robust conservation programs. We partner with the Water Management District. We partner with them on conservation programs. We do all we can to support and encourage saving water. We just feel like we've sort of, I don't know how much more we can really conserve at this point. And the allocation of jurisdictions, not to get too far in the weeds here, but each, you have RENA obligations here. You have housing obligations and desires that you want to do for your citizens. So right now, if only when you have a project approved. So he's saying we have X amount of units available, approved, then you're gonna get that water allocation. And then another jurisdiction, only if and when they have a approved project, will they get their allocation. this project one in Maple, we're gonna leave, we just want to provide water. Let the jurisdictions decide who I think are the people who should decide how to use, not a water company or a water manager should decide who gets the allocations of water. We think we want to have enough water available if needed for each jurisdiction to say, we can now, that water equation is out of question anymore, and we can get moving on our housing.
And we do have an obligation to purchase pure water Monterey, so we signed a water purchase agreement. We have to purchase that water when it's available.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I mean, the surface waters is, we have to maximize Carmel River, and we maximize M1W recycled water. And the ASR water is just a bank.
Thank you.
Councilmember Louie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, team and Josh, for the presentation of water. I'm just really fortunate, that we still have water here. I grew up from Philippines, and I remember when I was a kid, we would wake up at 2 a.m. in order to, really store water. We have big containers inside our house, and it's the only time that we would have running water, 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. And here I never experienced that. So that's why I'm still very fortunate, for your service, for providing us clean and safe water, to the Monterey Peninsula, and I thank you for that personally. And I just have a question, regarding, the collaboration of, CalAm with other local agencies. I know it was already been, mentioned that, this disagreement between the estimate of the, demand for water until 2050. I'm just curious, and also, the public here would want to know what other disagreements that CalAm may have with other local agencies that we have here in the peninsula.
Well, that's an interesting question. I suppose one disagreement would be on whether we should be, taken over or not. That's a pretty significant disagreement that's out there right now. There's a plan attempt, and a limited attempt. We're not for sale, and I don't think that that's going to amount to anything in the future. I think that's going to cost ratepayers quite a bit of money. That happens, and I wish that would stop. But, you know, I try to focus on the collaborations. I don't want to get into the differences. I don't think that's really, but, you know, when we collaborate on quite a bit of conservation programs, we support Monterey water, recycled water, we support that wholeheartedly. And we invested in that too. I think that's something that's forgotten. It's not just, it's us and them. We invested heavily in the inception of Monterey water in that. We invested heavily in the regional desalination project. Well, we're one of the partners, and as you may recall, there's a legal challenge that faced the regional project. So, you know, that's why the project was settled. And so I think that, you know, there are a lot of good things that we're doing in collaboration with Water Management District, M1W, and the county. You know, it's
Yeah, we're partners with Water Management District on the ASR program. We work hand in hand daily, right, on operating this system, but yeah, on other items, we don't necessarily see eye to eye. But we do have a very collaborative working relationship with the district.
Okay, so that's good to know, and I hope, you'll be able to sort out everything, for the betterment of the public here in the Monterey Peninsula. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the presentation. I just have one question, and you may have mentioned it already, but the supply and demand analysis is critical to your project and this whole discussion. And I know it's at CPUC. Do you have any idea when they plan on getting back on their comments regarding that supply and demand?
Yeah, I think, you know, we don't know exactly. I think they expect a decision maybe late summer, sometime like that.
Yeah. Okay. Space order.
Okay, all right, thank you. At this time, I would like to send it out to the public. If there are any public comment regarding the presentation, please come up to the microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm Susan Schiavone. I'm a board member with Public Water Now and a resident of Seaside, so thank you for letting me speak at your city council meeting. I just want to urge you to do your own research on what you've been told. The Coastal Commission granted a very conditional approval for Calman's plant. There are many conditions they have not met. It is premature to present this project as a done deal, especially since condition number one is that the CPUC must determine the supply and demand forecast presented by CalAm as justified. Hearings are underway now, as you've mentioned. No decision is going to be made until probably close to the fall. And they also have to seek CPUC approval for the current project, which is much more expensive than the originally approved project. CalAm's water supply and demand numbers are faulty. And I just want to point out with the PowerPoint, you can't have 8,500 acres of water as a supply and 9,500 as a demand present. Where are you getting the other 1,000 acres we're using as a demand? So that was a faulty information, not to mention that the year 22-23 was a very wet year. It was not a drought year, as they mentioned. CalAm's water supply demand numbers are faulty. They claim we need 14,480 acre feet a year by 2050. When questioned at the recent hearings on how they arrived at this number, they couldn't explain how land or houses use water in addition to the people that live there. They conflated the numbers by double and triple counting, adding lots of records, tourism bounce back, RHNA housing, and Pebble Beach entitlements to AMBAG's population and job growth forecast. But all of those are already included in AMBAG's forecast. The Monterey Peninsula Water Management District analysis shows we need 10,599 acre feet by 2050, about 1,500 acre feet more for growth than is currently required. Both CPUC's Public Advocate Office and National Water Forecasting expert Peter Meyer are within a few hundred acre feet of MPWMD's estimate. There's simply no demand for the high amount of water that CalAm projects. Pure Water Monterey expansion will be completed by the end of 2025, giving us an additional 2,250 acre feet in addition to what they are already producing, and bringing our total supply to 11,810 acre feet per year. CalAm does not consider how the extreme cost of water from desal would affect demand. They argued at the hearings that customers will use more water at any cost if it's available, maybe for multimillionaires. But if we ask those senior citizens who are foregoing showers and putting buckets under their faucets how cost affects use, who will, along with the rest of us, pay 50 to 70% higher water bills if this plant is built, we might get a different answer. That equation negates simple marketplace principles, and it completely negates the environmental justice issues for so many lower income ratepayers who will bear a huge burden. The Coastal Commission admitted there is no good remedy for this. Please read the submitted testimonies at the CPUC website and the updated supply and demand analysis at the MPWMD website before accepting CalAm's faulty narrative. Thank you for letting me speak.
The other public comment.
Okay, so we received a letter from Melody Chrislock, Managing Director of Public Water Now. She requested this be read to council. Jill, I already screwed up on the first. Delray Oaks City Council. With the new water supply from the Pure Water Monterey expansion coming online next year, how much more water does the peninsula really need? Peninsula's water supply and future demand were recently being argued at the CPUC. In question was CalAm's 25-year demand forecast meant to justify its proposed desal project. CalAm claims will need 14,480 acre feet per year, AFY, by 2050. Last year, the peninsula only used 9,083 acre feet, and our use has dropped by 2,534 AFY in the last 10 years. But CalAm claims will use 9,397 acre feet more a year by 2050. Where's the demand for this water? Could growth account for this? To put all this in context, look at the historic demand for additional water in the decade before the 2009 moratorium on new water hookups. From 1998 to 2008, only 160 acre feet of new water was needed for growth. If that historic demand, 16 AFY average, holds true by 2050, we would need another 400 AFY. Yet CalAm claims we will need 5,397 AFY more. The Monterey Peninsula Water Management District argued that we'll need 10,599 AFY by 2050. That's about 1,500 AFY more for growth than we use now. Monterey Peninsula Water Management District was not alone in its testimony challenging CalAm's estimate. Both the CPUC's Public Advocate's Office and Peter Meyer, National Water Forecasting Expert, were within a few hundred acre feet of MPWMD's 2050 estimate. Public Water Now argued that one of the major reasons for the drop in water use over the last 10 years is cost. CalAm did not even consider how the extreme cost of water from their proposed desal plant would affect demand. Against all logic, they argued that cost does not affect demand and customers would simply use more water at any cost if it were available. How did CalAm come up with this 14,480 AFY by 2050? CalAm inflated demand by double and triple counting, adding lots of record, tourism bounce back, RHNA, housing, and Pebble Beach entitlements to AMVAC's population and job growth forecasts. But those are already included in AMVAC's forecast. When questioned on how they arrived at their demand for 2050, CalAm could not explain how land or houses use water in addition to people who live in them. CalAm tried for years to block the expansion of Pure Water Monterey, knowing that it alone would be enough water for decades and would eliminate the need for CalAm's profitable desal plant. Now that the PWM expansion is being built, CalAm's new strategy is claiming we need both the PWM expansion and its proposed $400 million desal plant. There's no demand for the massive amount of water CalAm projects. It's far more than we could use, but we would pay for it now with a 50% to 70% increase in water bills. Our local public agencies, Monterey One Water, the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District, and the Marina Coast Water District have given us a new water supply that will last us for decades. The Pure Water Monterey expansion will be completed by the end of 2025, giving us an additional 2,250 AFY and bringing our total supply to 11,810 AFY.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, once again, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is the consent agenda. Is there any item that the council would like to pull from the consent?
I just have one edit table.
Okay. Any other items? Any items that the public would like to pull from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. Go ahead.
On the carried item, there were two motions listed in the notes. And so I think we need to edit out the first motion. Because I believe I was the one who made the initial motion and then it was seconded by Councilmember Lee. Okay, no worries, this one, have it accurate.
Okay,
That's it.
great. Thanks for pointing that out. We'll make the correction.
Thanks.
Okay, if there are no other items, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent. So moved. Second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, consent agenda is passed. Move on to old business. First item is the housing element. Denise Duffy and Associates, and I'll turn it over to the city manager first.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So as you all know, we made a major push last year to do our fifth cycle and fifth cycle. Our fifth cycle was adopted and then certified by the state. We adopted this cycle and, so we're in the 120-day period to address, comments from ACD. We received those comments. Denise and I have had, a meeting with ACD to go over their comments. We were expecting, what would you say, it was about a 15-page comment letter. We got a 6.5-page comment letter. So we're doing great. So now Denise is here to give us an update on where we are.
Thank you. My name is Denise Duffy. I'm your planning consultant for the housing element, and, thank you, council, thank you, city manager, and mayor, members of the council. Just wanted to give a brief report and an update regarding, and I will keep it brief. I'd like to be able to identify where we are right now in terms of the process. Like many other jurisdictions, we're working on making the revisions from HCB's latest letter. There isn't actually a requirement for 120 days, but we're trying to shoot for that. We received the comments in the middle of February. We met with HCD. We identified what we're trying to do now, and we're working on is really revising programs, considering the revised programs, so we can bring them back to the planning commission and the council at the same time. We're dealing with all the minutia that they're also involved in. So I just really wanted to discuss a few of the programs tonight, and then identify that we'll be back in front of the planning commission in the April meeting, and then again, the city council, or we may also just do a workshop too, depending on the agenda timeframe. But the overall, the comments were less than they were before. Within our meeting, I think it was also acknowledged that a number of the comments were specifically sort of, well, we didn't mean that as much as we meant to, that's a sort of an average comment, and so they were very helpful, and we hope to continue moving forward with HCD, working with them, and bringing them out to discussions with you in the interim, bringing them draft programs too. So as an example, one of the program revisions that I wanted to bring up is we had a program to identify ADUs and monitoring of ADUs, and the HCD wants to see more implementation of how that would be done. So we are identifying that we're monitoring ADUs, that we only have 20 ADUs that we're identifying as what would be the 6-cycle RENA number underneath or part of the RENA as a buffer to the RENA, regional harbor use method. And but even though that small number, they want to have very much specifics. Another example of, during one of our meetings, one of the city council members identified, why don't we look at having a couple of rehab units, rehabilitated units as part of identifying that's how we would meet RENA. They said, well, if you're gonna do that, then we need to have very specific identification of how you're going to be meeting those 2 units over the 8-year planning cycle. So it's very implementation specific in terms of what they'd like to see. They talk specifically about also for the former forward for water. The key question today is that how will you be leading the water, availability of water for ADUs, particularly in the modern Princeton Water Management District area. They want to identify how exactly that's going to happen and where it's going to be located. They want to identify specifically how would be, what are the constraints to development that you'll be taking away for the former portable property. And we are all working on all of those elements, so it's really writing them down and getting more specific that and putting them in the language that you want us to see. So those are a few of the programs. There's going to be some decision making too when we come back in terms of they'd like to see more information on changing some of the parking standards from HCD's perspective. They would prefer not to have garages because they consider that's a constraint to development. That's a policy decision. And also wanting to bring back, we'll be working with city manager to just identify the mix and the extent of the programs over the 8-year cycle and what the city is signing up for in terms of what can be done and what can be accomplished. Because that's really important, and see if there's any that we can elongate out in terms of when things can be accomplished, given the small size of the city and the city staff resources. And I think with that, I will make this a short presentation, knowing you have another piece on the agenda and be available for any questions.
All right, thank you, Denise. I'll first start with Councilmember Howell.
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. Thank you for your brief presentation, Denise Duffy and Associates. I just took a few notes for consideration. Thanks as always for your diligent work on this and carrying the city forward. We will see you in April.
Councilmember Shirley.
Yes, thank you, Denise. I was just wondering in this letter, was there anything that you read that you thought, oh, this is gonna be hard to do? Is there a part of this that you're dreading? That might be difficult for us to process as a council or for you to, you know, have it be satisfy HCD? I'm just curious.
I think I can maybe come back with that, with more specifics on that. Overall, I think it's just the time to develop some of the nitty gritty on it. I think some of the programs that they're asking for are really gonna be council decisions. We want to identify that we won't do garages, that our parking centers will be this way, that we will change our use permit process to not require use permits for housing, things like that. So we'll come back with a list of those things, and for the most part, it's really just the time to submit to make all the changes in the program revisions.
Yeah.
And as they said when we started out, I mean, it's still, Del Rio is still moving further than many of the other jurisdictions. But they said expect two to three reviews when you go through this process. I think it's just the time.
Yeah, okay. You mentioned, one of my questions was, actually the ADU that they're, the water for ADUs that they're asking for us to identify how we're gonna set that aside. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think what we need is I think they talked about also working with the water management district. For ADUs that are located within the district boundaries, they'll need to identify how the allocation programs can be revised so that they will be water and provide us water when it's available, be able to use, and if they're gonna be a priority system for that. So that is something that we don't have all the control over.
Okay, and then, you know, and then in addition to, just water capacity in general, I know they reference the 61-60 cap. When you address that, do you have Marina Coast come in and provide the information they need that will guarantee that we have water? How do you address that?
I think that we've already prepared the EIR that had that information in it. We attached the components of the EIR, which was those answers to the housing element. I don't think that there was actually a thorough review of all of the elements within it, given the timeframe. It's a large document. So I think it's already been stated and it's on the record, in terms of the 61-60.
Okay, okay. And they're looking for, again, firm commitments, timelines and milestones for infrastructure and things of that nature. Do we just kind of estimate as best we can?
Chapter 3 identifies when South Boundary Road is coming in and it's already funded. Funding will get updated information from the city manager on that. I know that things have happened even since the date that this housing element went out, in terms of the all of the program implementation. I have a big chart that has all the programs of all the years, and we'll be filling that out, and that'll identify at least when we expect things to happen. In terms of the request that they had for surplus land and the development, a lot of that is already ongoing. It's already been an RFP process over the years. There's been surplus land process already completed, developers on the wings. So it's about, we know what we're doing. I guess we have to identify what's happening
Okay.
to HCD and put some timeframes on it.
Yeah.
What they want to see is you are going to have affordable housing in the future, right? And so it's our job to identify, here's what we've done, you can only do what we can do.
Yeah. Well, I just want to emphasize, you know, let's keep moving forward. I know maybe the 120 days isn't a hard term, but I think we need to keep moving. We have a lot to do, obviously, and I appreciate your work on this, and I look forward to seeing this come back to us as much as we need to.
Thank you. So, thank you. And just one comment on that too. I think the important key thing is the general plan amendment and the rezoning that occurred in 2023. And then the December 15th, 2023 deadline that was met by the city for the adoption of that. So we do have up to a year now, and we will not be taking.
Good, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Rags up front.
Thank you. Somebody wants to cupcakes, because I made another. She wants them next week. But anyway, thanks for all the hard work. I think a couple things pop into my mind. Housing on the forward properties, water's coming from Marina Coast. Housing, any kind of housing development we want to do within the current city body comes from CalM/Monterey Peninsula Water Management. And with Pure Water Monterey coming online in 25, towards the end of 25, it looks like. Theoretically, there'll be some water allocated. And I'm gonna guess that between now and then, there's gonna be a lot of pressure on all the jurisdictions is to conserve a good sized chunk of whatever available water the cities get or gonna be for low income ADU housing. So I'm looking forward to seeing those numbers when they come through. Other than that, great job. You know, I read where we're way ahead if we're on the 6th cycle, and we're already into dealing with our 6-page advice letter versus 20 pages. A lot of cities are still struggling, I think, to get a bit cycle on. So great job. And yes, I don't like it. Oh, no, it's ice cream. Somebody said ice cream works. All right, we'll do it. Thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Denise, thank you so much for all your hard work. I've always been roaming around, if I'm being invited to some, seminar or like representing our city, I always tell the people that, yay, we adopted our 6th cycle, housing element. And I'm always very proud to say that. And, because of all the hard work of our community and also with you, our city planner. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And I just have a question regarding, because I remember last year we added some special needs population in our housing element. Did HCD say something about it? And if they did, is it hard to comply or to fulfill?
Thank you. Thanks for your comments, and it's a good question. So they asked us to provide more information on extremely low income, which is kind of covered by population. It could be students and it could be military, but it's the ELI, providing more specific resources that are available within the city. The city doesn't have resources, but housing providers, things like that. So we're reaching out and getting more information. Again, that isn't an appendix, but they want us to pull it up. They also asked to take a look at farm workers, even though the city is, the farm workers within the city or Bagland, and just looking at it on a regional basis. So everything really about the housing element is about special needs groups, and we're focusing on that in our wider revisions.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Yeah, that's all from me, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right, thank you. Take it out to the public. Any public comments regarding this item? Okay, seeing none. Denise, thank you. As mentioned, we're in really good shape as far as this 6th cycle goes. And for the public, there are going to be plenty of meetings where you'll have the opportunity to provide input on the remaining items that we have to answer. And feel free to come on down and participate in those meetings, because as much feedback as we can get is greatly appreciated. Okay, I'll go on to the next item, which is item 7B, a carryover from the council meeting that we had on February 27th of this year. It's an appeal of the building official findings for tenant improvement application at 121 Calle del Oaks. During the January.
Mr. Mayor, with respect,
Okay.
I'll continue to recuse myself from any discussion or actions on this item.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, during the January council meeting, it was decided by the council to continue the item so that the records that were provided could be reviewed and further deliberation could occur. And that has happened. But I also have learned that there's new information that the applicants would like to, present. So this is your opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Tony Lombardo on behalf of Vince Finaldi, the other lawyer in the room. Say that, thanks. Thank you. I apologize for my letter this afternoon because I thought until yesterday afternoon we might have had a solution, but we did not. So after, as you mentioned, after the last meeting was continued, we had hoped to be able to meet with the Water Management District and your staff and ourselves to work through a resolution. Unfortunately, the city staff was not willing to do that, so weren't able to have that meeting. However, we did independently contact Mr. Stoll because Mr. Finaldi realized that the issue of some controversy at the last meeting was the mezzanine, which is what the city's planning to describe this area, a true mezzanine because there were no stairs in the city official's opinion built and therefore couldn't qualify as a mezzanine. Mr. Finaldi had done research and contacted city staff and said, well, there are other categories of occupancy that don't require stairs. Mechanical space does not require access by stairs. So I reached out to Mr. Stolt and said, would you recognize if this was a mechanical area or a mezzanine, would you recognize this space for purposes of saying that there is existing water available for the use of the space? And on March 21st, this was Mr. Stoll's reply. The Monterey Peninsula Water Management District's position is and has always been, if the city states that it originally permitted 11,200 square feet, and this is the important part, irrespective of its type of use. It doesn't matter if it's a mezzanine, doesn't matter if it's a mechanical storage area, it doesn't matter if you stored my grandmother's old furniture up there, they count it. Then we recognize the water allocation for the full 11,200 feet is pre-existing and no additional allocation is required. Well, here are the building plans approved by the city that for 11,200 square feet, as we discussed last time, the assessor's office recognizes and has charged taxes on 11,200 square feet since the building was built. So it is an 11,200 square foot building. Per Mr. Stoll's email, we're entitled to that amount of water. What happened yesterday, unfortunately, was Mr. Finaldi prepared the water release form because your staff said, get the district to approve the water release form and we'll issue the permit. That form has to be signed by the city at the bottom, and the city refused to do that. They suggested that Mr. Stoll sign the form at the bottom. Mr. Stoll is not the jurisdiction, it's to be signed by the jurisdiction, not Mr. Stoll. So, in closing, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm sorry we're back here again. I hope that in those 2 months, we could have gotten further than we did, but not being able to meet with your staff, we ended up here. So Stoll has confirmed that we're entitled to the water for 11,200. There's no evidence in the record that that mezzanine was built illegally. It's been assessed that way if your plans approved it. And we just need you to direct the staff to put their signature on that line that says no additional water needed. And Stoll said yesterday they will issue the water permit with no additional water needed based on the fact that the square footage has existed since 1978.
Thank you. Sorry to be here taking your time up again. I'm sure you know, heard more than you'd ever like to hear about this building. But this is important to me. It's important to my family. We paid for this building and this 1,600 square foot space is important for the business and it's expensive. It's the valuation on that we had to pay is over $600,000, right? I can't take that off the MLS. It's an 11,200 square foot building on the MLS. You go to sell it. It's there in the assessor's office. That's what you have to pay taxes for. It's been paid on taxes on since 1978. So after the hearing, we went back and we did work. I know one of the sticking points was the stairs. Well, you know, no stairs, it can't be improved, you know? And we poured over the 76 uniform building code. and it's table 33A. And it's section 15, it says mechanical equipment rooms, no stairs, ramp, or elevators required. That resolves it, right? Yeah, I'm not the building official. You know, that's something the building official put up, easily, you know, found and said something about, but, you know, the building official said, well, there's no stairs. That resolves it, you know? It's an important issue. So when we found that out, we went to the water district and said, look, what if it's a mechanical equipment? Would that qualify for water? And they said, yes. And we said, there's the resolution, there's the workaround. That's what we were trying to talk to the city about. So I said, all right, we've got the information we need, water's there, let's go to the city. I asked for a meeting with the city. I said, let's sit down, city attorney, city manager, building official, and let's talk about this, because this is an important thing. They wouldn't meet with us. They said, there's nothing that's gonna change our position, right? There's no new information. And I said, well, there is new information. So I said, all right, I wanna get it in front of them. I wanna send an email. I sent an email to the city manager. I put it all in there. I put the building code, I copied the building code, it was highlighted. I put all of it. And they said, you know, this doesn't change our position. I said, well, how can it not change your position? So, and he said, well, if you get water to approve it, you know, then have them send a document. So we see, well, CC Water, that's how we got the email from Water. And it's in writing. It says the water's there. It's always been there. It's 11,200 square foot. Just, so then, the city manager said, all right, well, here's a form. And he emailed me the form. He said, you get this form filled out and we'll get it signed. We'll get this, you know, approved post haste quickly, right? I said, okay, great. So I, you know, left work and I got the form and I filled out the form. And if you look at the form, you know, we emailed that to everyone today, and I'm sorry if it was late. But we just found out that we have to come here to present today. This is the reason why. Do you all have a copy of this form? Okay, so on the left-hand side of the form, it says existing group one, you know, says to say the size of the building, right? This form only had to start being used after, I think, 1986, right? There was no form before then, right? So if you go to existing use here, what they said was, well, the existing use before was 9,600, right? Why did it say 9,600 on the old form? It's because that's all they wanted to improve is 9,600, right? They never improved that mezzanine. The mezzanine's been the same the entire time, right? That doesn't mean the building's only 9,600 square feet. What if, for example, it was a 10,000 square foot building, and the only improvement that was ever done was a 50 square foot improvement, and we had a water from 50 square feet? That doesn't make the building 50 square feet, right? It just means that's all that was improved before. The building's always been 1,200. So I fill out the form, and I'm the one who signed on the penalty of perjury. I have more information that this building is 11,200 than anyone has information that it's less, right? I went back to the city after the hearing. I said, all right, there was confusion about whether there was the actual building permit, the actual building application, and the actual inspection form from 1978 in the city's files. I went twice. I met with Ms. Phipps once, reviewed all the files and records, wasn't in there. The only thing they have is that the plans, right? That's it. Then I got a call from Ms. Manani or an email. He said, hey, there's some other documents we found. If you want to review the entire file, come back. I said, no problem. Came back, reviewed it all again. Not in, there's no original building. There's no original building application, and there's no original building inspection form, right? Those are the city's documents. The city is the one who's saying that, you know, the building is this size and not that size. They're making me prove a negative. Why should I have to be one that has to prove the negative when they're not my documents? They're the city documents. We should start with a presumption that it is an 11,200 square foot building. That's it. These external records. The city's the one that's missing something. And what is the city trying to use? A postcard? A postcard that's got sent out by the Dobbies and some water form that was filled out by a tenant of the building because that's the only area that they were trying to improve, right? At the bottom of the form here, one of the things the city was, said, we're not going to test to anything, we're not going to certify. You're not testing or certifying anything. If you read it, it says authorization for water permit, jurisdiction use only, so the jurisdiction has to sign it. There's an area for notes. Both the building official, the city manager, you can write any notes you want in there. You can write 9,600 square foot building, mezzanine as well, 1,200, and no water needed, as stated by MPWMD, and sign it. You're not attesting to anything. You're not signing under penalty of perjury. You're not saying anything else. You're not attesting to anything. I've attested to that. I've taken the brunt of that. Right? So I really don't see the problem with that. I'm gonna go through the rest of my notes here, because I know I missed a couple things, and I wanna make sure that I get everything on the record in front of me, because this is very important. There's no document in the city record saying this is the square size of the building. There's no document in the city file saying that. Here's the square footage. There's nothing, right? So if the building official can't say that it's 11,200, right? Because there's not enough records to say, how can he say it's 9,600? He can't do either one. If he doesn't have enough information, right, to say definitively that it's 11,200 or it's not 11,200, he can't say either one. The city record is devoid of that. And what have we done? We've provided evidence and information. We've gotten declarations from the original builders and the original tenants that say it's been there since the beginning and it's been in use since the beginning. It's uncontroverted. It's been in use since the beginning, right? Every time we bring more information, the building official of the city said, that's not enough. That's not enough. That's not going to change our mind. What more can I give? I've gotten, documents, the building permits, I've gone through building code. I've provided more evidence than the city's provided to the contrary. And here, this appeal, you're supposed to look at all the evidence and say what the weight of the evidence shows in which side. And that's the reason for appeals, right? I understand that as a building official, your job, that's your job. That's how you support yourself or whatever. And sometimes people can get entrenched in their positions and they don't want to say that they were wrong. And I get that, all right? There could be many reasons why the building official doesn't want to change his position, or that the city manager doesn't want to change his position, right? That's what appeals are for. That's why we have elected officials on a board that can come in here and use your life experience, right? And come in with a clear head and say, look, this is wrong. And this person is being wrong. And I feel that I'm being wronged here. And that the board should step in and say, look, we're gonna right this wrong. These are our records. We don't have records of this. There's really no issue with water. There's no issue with water. I know the building official said this last time, I didn't say it again, he's gonna reconnect and say, well, if we sign this and we're gonna be on the hook, and we gotta watch out, it's gonna be a big problem with the city, and, this is not a real issue, there's no real issue there that a person or entity or anyone has said that they objected to this. There's not a single person I've ever talked to about this issue that disagrees with me, right? That's a feigned issue. If the city goes against me on this, I'm gonna have to continue. I've got no choice. There's just too much money tied up in it, and I have to proceed to litigation. I have to. That's a real problem. That's a real problem. It's actual. It's going to happen. It's gonna cost the city money. It's gonna cost me money, but someone's gonna have to pay for it in the end. It's just a reality. It is what it is, That's a real issue, right? Not maybe, well, this and that. I'm the one who signed it on Lake Perjury. Water has already said there's water. And you can write anything you want in the notes, right? As a CYA, I get why, the city manager or the building official might not want to, go back, but they've entrenched themselves in a position. And I think that no matter what I present, that they're not going to change their position. And I don't think that's right. And that's the reason for these appeals. And I plead to the board to please approve this appeal, and I promise the board you won't regret it. I promise. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
All right, thank you. Is there anything that the city would like to present?
here is difficult for all of us. As Callahan was just here earlier, you know, I understand his frustration with this process. We'd like to build it. But again, as he stated, I'm unwilling to attest because my attestation is a review of the record. It's not my opinion. This is what the record says. And actually, as your building official, been here a while, my reading of these particular records are actually quite clear. We have quite a few records. So if we attest to something that I know that is clear in the record, that's what can be challenged. Just as a matter that pertains to this, these are the original 1978 plans, whether the permit's in there or not. The permit is for the purpose of seeing who's the person that built it, who's the responsible party on scene at the time of construction. The record is the time. The permit governs the time of construction, who's the responsible party for accident and corrections. This is the plan. It's depending, the variable project is there within 9,400 square feet, or 9,600 square feet, whether you count the exterior walls. That's the variation we have. The office they're talking about, it's in the record. I'm beholden to the record, not my opinion. The record of the office area that improved it, that changed the valuation and the taxes, happened in 1985. These are the plans, these are the record, not my opinion. I can't have an opinion in this matter. I just have to take the measurements and this is what it says. So the question is the rooftop of that office that was improved in 1985. And they want to use the nomenclature of what it is. But it wasn't built in 1985. I don't know how we get back to predating and the use of that to prior to 1985 to meet the water management's requirement of predating 1985. It wasn't built then. So that's the position I'm in. Yes, I would benefit. I think the city would benefit if we had water and we could approve it. It sounds like if water management are able to produce water in the next couple of years, great. This is something we could revisit. I think the plans are drawn. We'd approve this in a day. If we had water, that's the great restriction we have over here. I'm the bearer of bad news for some of these. You know, we have another 180 used bits this year if we had water. And it's frustrating to be the bearer of bad news. But I'm your building official, because this is what the record says. You're welcome to review. You have further questions. I think you've all had the opportunity to review them. I have to sign it in dispute of these records. I can't do it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I'll start with the council first. Do you have any questions or comments regarding the new evidence or the new information that's been provided? I'll start with Councilmember Shirley.
I don't have any questions. I feel as though, Mr. Stoltz's stance is not new. I feel like that's what they've always stated, that if there was, 11,200 square feet of permitted square, building, then the water would be there. So no, this time I do not.
Okay, Councilmember Redfield.
The only question I have is if if water management, let's say Dave out of Fisher, water management says there's water for the 11.2 or whatever it is. I don't understand what the concept is. I came in and looked at every plan and drawing that was in the file. It shows the building, it shows the office, it shows the mezzanine. There's nothing in anything I could find that showed a staircase or a ladder or anything else going up to it. That's very common practice in my world. When you build a commercial building, you throw an office in the middle of it. If you're gonna do it, you build a strong pile stuff on top of it, because that's what everybody's gonna do. Okay, so if I didn't see the new chart 35, whatever it is, that shows using it for mechanical space or things like that. I probably could find it if I want to dig it up. I guess my question is it seems like no harm, no foul to just go yay. Water management just go with 11.2.
So I can answer that.
Yes, please.
Because I talked to Mr. Stone, and he is not saying that there is prior allocation of water. There's a key sentence in there. Key part of this sentence is if the city states that this was an approved 11,200 square foot project in 1978, the district will accept it. He does not say that they have found 11,200 square feet of project, that they have found a historic. These are his words to me.
Right, okay.
That what he said is that if the city, Joe, says the record says this was an 11,200 square foot project, we will accept it. That's why I said, based on what I was hearing from the applicant, who was telling me that the water management district had said that the allocation was approved, that's when I said, fine. When the water management district then tells me that they have overridden the city and determined that the project was 11,200 square feet, then we'll accept that. And Dave Schultz said, that is not what I said. I said that if the city says that, so that's different. That's a different way.
No, I just read it on your. So I guess the question, my next question would be, how do we come to I mean, we see the plans that call for the footprint of the building. We see the plans that call for the footprint of the office and the mezzanine is actually described in there. And it's square footage and square footage. But there's nothing in the plans, I don't know if it would be in the permit or where it would be found or not. How do you calculate that entire square footage? I mean, it's there. And if it's a storage space that or a mechanical room or a mechanical loft, whatever, I'm not sure what you would call it, then it seems like according to this, item 37, 34 chart, whatever it is that they propose, I have to find it. If that's the case, then I don't think we have an argument. I think the question is how do we figure out how to get from 94 to 11.2? It's there. It's there, and it was built with permits. No, there's no question, I don't think that the office was built without a permit.
Yeah, and your building official just told you the record doesn't support what you're asking. Okay.
That's my question.
If the permits is missing, you know, you gotta fill it out on permits.
No, just hold on a second. We'll wait till, Vice Mayor Louis have any comments or questions, and then I'll allow you to.
Thank you.
Expound.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I've been listening and I don't have further questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Regs L. Cronin. I think you hit the nail on the proverbial head, which is that the only record you have is the building permit from 1978 that includes the mezzanine. Mr. Stolz's email says, if the city states it originally permitted 11,200 square feet, well, it did. That's the building permit from 1978, is a total of 11,200 square feet. So all the city has to do is say, yes, we originally permitted a building that consisted of 11,200 square feet. Not when it was built, what it was built for, how it was built. That's all Mr. Stoll needs. And so the city isn't making up anything. The records you have show this building with a mezzanine above the office, which is total of 11,200, which is exactly how the assessor has assessed it since it was built. So that's what we need the city council to do, is to make a decision that the building as originally permitted was 11,200 square feet. Then you can direct the staff to mark the box that says no new water is needed because it's 11,200 square feet. I'm really at a loss to explain what we're doing here. There is no question this building was built, as you said, with these permits that show 11,200 square feet. That's all you're being asked by Mr. Stoll to say is that it was permitted to be 11,200 square feet of any space, and that's what you did.
And I'll be very brief. But I had to fill out a permit application, just a few months ago. And I have to, you have to write down square footage, you have to write down all types of information on the project, right? That's what would be in that original application. The building permit says the size and everything. That's what the city should have. We should have both of those. The city has an incomplete record. The city doesn't have the inspection card, right? What we do have is the plans. And the plans from 78, the earlier plans show mezzanine, all right? It's not just the later ones. Both of them, they show mezzanine. What is a mezzanine? It's an intermediate floor. We know that from the UBC, right? Does it have to have stairs? It doesn't have to have stairs if it's a mechanical equipment. Mr. Headley even was saying in the beginning, well, that's mechanical, you can't change it in one office. That was his position, 3-4 months ago. So, once again, I don't think there's any dispute that it's 11,200 square foot building. It always has been, and we provide photos. We provided photos from before in 85 that showed the windows up there and it showed, that stair going up and with the truck inside the building. And declarations from people saying that it was there and it's in use before the 1985 time. So we provided evidence at that point. Mr. Headley has a couple of pairs of plans, right? From back then, but none of us were here then. None of us were here then, right? He wasn't even a building official at the time. So what we have to do is think about what happened back then, right? We're interpreting evidence and we interpret it differently. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just a brief rebuttal. Obviously, lawyers, wordsmiths are very good with that. As he said, their interpretation of the plans is greater than mine. Okay, I'm a plans examiner. I'm a plans expert. This is what I've done. I'm approaching 50 years in this business. I'm telling you with great precision, those plans are very, very clear. To another plans examiner, to another building official, they're very clear. It's 9,600 square feet. So for me to sign it, anybody else within my industry will look at that and go, what was he thinking? Incorrect. As I stated, their view of the plan is different. I'm your expert. It's 9,600 square feet. I would like it to be more too. I benefit from that. I truly do. But I also am a sworn position in your employee. I'm sworn to read those plans as my industry prescribes. I wish I could come to a different conclusion. It would be a lot easier for me. I wouldn't be here to resolve this alone. Sorry, I can't. So it would fall to someone else to attest on the bottom of that form. I can't. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at the council meeting in January. This application was initially discussed, but I had the opportunity to go back and look at all of the video and review all the documentation that was provided. And I will tell you that I think across the board, everybody did a very good job of explaining your position and made some very compelling arguments, regardless of who you were. It's an unfortunate situation because we've got good people trying to do good things or facilitate trying to do good things. Mr. Finaldi, I applaud the vision that you have for your business and for the building. The Water Management District has tried to facilitate this to the extent that they can under the rules and regulation of the cease and desist order. And Mr. Headley has also done the same to try and facilitate this to the best of his ability, staying within the rules and the regulations that he is sworn to uphold. The configuration and the use of this structure that we're talking about over the decades is not the issue. Because it's not uncommon, whether it be commercial property or residential property, that structures or facilities are placed in those that aren't permitted or the record doesn't show that it existed. And that's the key aspect to this whole application. And all roads lead back to the record. You just heard a little bit about the records that the city has and that the water district has. And it's a catch-22 situation, because what you've heard is if the water district was to provide a water allocation to the city would process its application. It's not a problem whatsoever. And I think the city would look favorably upon that application. But they can't, because they're under a cease and desist order. And that's why you just heard the city manager explain what the director is limited in what he can do. But, like you heard, the water management district will say, okay, if the city will say retroactively that this existed, then we'll go ahead and say, yes, we'll give the additional water allocation. But for that to happen, which you just heard, we would have to have our city inspector essentially falsify a record, is what it comes down to. I've had a chance to review the city records in detail, and it consistently shows 9,600 square feet. There is one document from the Water Management District that shows 9,400 square feet. But as Mr. Headley explained, it's a calculation based on either inside the walls or outside of the walls of the property, and that's a discrepancy of 200 square feet difference. The applicant has provided nothing to contradict that square footage other than pointing out a third-party document that showed 11,200 square foot. But at the bottom of that document, it reads not for official record. Besides that, there's nothing. So essentially what you're asking the city and this council here to do is two things. Create a retroactive record, which the rules don't allow, and override our city inspector. I'm not qualified to do that. I don't know if anyone else on the council is qualified to do that. And equally important, it would set a bad precedence for this city. For other unpermitted or other structures that don't have record on file and want to get water allocation. There's nothing to suggest that the city did anything wrong, lost anything, or failed to process something. And it's because of all those reasons that I can't support this appeal. So those are my thoughts on it. What I would like to do is once again allow the council to provide any other comments. And if there are any other questions, you can do that as well. So Councilman Philly.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Clearly, the expert in the room for reading plans is Mr. Headley. And the appellant didn't provide any additional inspector of their own that would give a different conclusion to those plans. So right now, the only thing before us that we know is what our city inspector has viewed. And so I have to go with that knowledge. He is the expert in the room in terms of determining square footage based off those plans. And so there wasn't anything that was provided to me that would lead me down a different path. I realize that there's space that's been used in various capacities. I agree with that. But again, we are looking for permitted square footage space. And the water management, general manager said that he will only provide extra water for permitted space. And so, my determination is that I have to go with what the records show, and right now the record is showing 9,600 square feet.
Councilmember Ragsdale from.
Yeah, I have no additional questions other than maybe Mr. Headley can answer. Who calculates square footage for taxes? Is it the county? Is it the builder? Is it the owner? Somewhere, somebody's gotta have a number that says, you do this.
For taxation purposes, it's based on valuation, the value of a given project.
So they don't.
One of the components, they will use that if they have a discrepancy with the valuation presented.
Okay, thank you. That's fine. I've looked through all the records and stuff. I find this a very difficult position for the city. for the tenant and everything else, but I'm not gonna override the chairman. I can't do it. He's the expert, I'm certainly not. I haven't seen anything that just really jumps out at me. I know the plans show this plans show this, the plans show this, somewhere you gotta get to somebody's gotta have a calculation somewhere that says this is what it is. And nobody's given me that calculation different than 9,600 from any official source.
Can we assess it?
I'm not the back.
Okay, Vice Mayor Wu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After considering all the facts and the evidence presented, I'm compelled to really uphold, Mr. Henley's determination. Considering all this evidence, presented, it is clear that, Mr. Henley's determination regarding the square footage is accurate and should be upheld. The city has provided, strong evidence, including the commercial water inspection and also the, building plans, to support this determination. The owner's arguments, while presented by competent legal counsel, do not provide, sufficient evidence to overturn, Mr. Henley's determination. In making this decision, I have really carefully considered the facts and evidence presented. And I believe that upholding Mr. Henley's determination is the most reasonable and fair course of action. This decision is based on the specific findings, and it is in the best interest of all parties involved to uphold the facts and evidence. But I understand that my decision may disappoint Mr. Finaldi, but it is important to prioritize accuracy and adherence to records and regulations in matters such as this. I am confident that this decision is supported by the facts and evidence presented, and it is my hope that all parties involved can accept and respect this decision. I understand that this decision also may have implications for all parties involved, and I offer my sincere empathy to those affected. It is my hope that this decision reflects our unwavering commitment to uphold the integrity of our records, our regulations, and ensuring transparency in our decision-making process. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. What I'd like to do last is go out to the public if there are any public comments regarding this situation.
Hello, I'm Helen Birdsong. If this piece of property that everybody's talking about was the largest square footage, why doesn't it have the water? Because it's been occupied, it's been used, so surely the water would have been part of it. Why all of a sudden does it need more water if it's had water in the building since it's built? So if the water in the building is for the 9,000 something square feet, and the argument is it's now 11,000 square feet, well, why wasn't water given for 11,000 square feet? And why not just go on the list, on the waiting list for water, and just do it that way and resize it? I don't understand, just my comments. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal. From Mr. Bennell.
All right, do I have a second?
All set.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. All right, I'll move on to the next item, which is item 8, new business. Oh, yes. Which is item 8, new business, we have none. Next item is staff reports, and I will turn it over to the city manager.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Few announcements and updates on some things. That was passed on consent. Both the uses I was asking about, the tobacco item.
That was passed earlier on consent. You guys are all
Oh, we are.
But thanks, Lori.
That was my first time.
I'm like,
I
Oh,
thought you guys really cared about it.
we do.
we do.
So now let's stay until the end.
All right. Okay, so a few updates going on around City Hall and some other things. First of all, because our police chief, like all the rest of us, does everything, a little bit of everything. He's always looking for ways that we can squeeze a penny here, pinch a penny there, save money here. So one thing that's for all of us at City Hall, he's been working a lot with Karen and Bruce's input, to switch over our phone systems. Because, you know, like you see, we have trouble with our technology here, so we're slowly upgrading our technology. And so our phone system is a little outdated, occasionally it just decides to shut down. And then we have to go through a whole rigmarole to get it back up and going. Now we're gonna go to a voice over internet protocol, system, which will. I'm gonna push the chief to make sure it's cheaper. It'll be around the same cost or maybe a little bit more, but the service level will be vastly improved. We'll have different new services, that will help us do our jobs. We'll be able to get our voicemail messages on our phones. So we can answer people's questions, more efficiently and more effectively. And if you guys have questions, you can ask the chief because he's the expert on it. I'll go ahead and jump into a couple of other things for the chief. He's also been looking at our fuel costs and are we getting the best bang for a buck on fuel costs? And he determined no, especially since the department is the biggest offender when it comes to fuel costs. It's just that. And so, he's going to switch us over, or we're working together, to switch us over to a new fuel system. And right now we've been with Chevron, which is everybody knows, anybody buys gas, Chevron's always the highest. Or we go with 7-Eleven, which is great because not only do we have a reduced rate, but when we fill up at our gas station here, we actually get tax money back. So we get double bang for the buck, so we might as well keep it here local. And then also, you've heard the chief talk to you all about the church. Talking to you all about the ABLE training program. It's the Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement program, which basically trains and empowers all level of staff to be comfortable telling another member of staff if they think something's not being done right or policies not being followed, or to help avoid mistakes. And because, in a hierarchical structure, it can be really intimidating for a new officer to tell a commander, hey, I don't think you should be doing that. Hey, maybe we can do that. Policy says we should be doing that way. So, for those of you who were on the public safety committee, you all heard this. Thank you for your support on that. But we've already had 2 trainings out. We sent 2 officers, Jeff Andoy and Sergeant Perez, to go do the train the trainer program. And so now they've come back and they've done the first training for all of our staff, last Monday and this Sunday is the second training, the final training. So all of our staff will be trained. I think we're the only department in Monterey County right now that we fully trained, right?
We may be the only one fully trained. Greenfield is heading down the road as well.
Yeah.
Everybody in Invasia pretty much picked it up, but we're ahead of the game.
Yeah. So, their jobs are stressful and they deal with stuff the rest of us can't imagine. And they have to be able to think like that. And it helps if you have a collective mind. If there's more of you, you can help each other deal with things on the fly and quickly, if you're all working together. So that's a key part of it. And then for me, for the administrator, for you all as the policymakers, this is also important because this helps with our insurance costs. It helps bring our insurance costs down. In our insurance pool, which is several other cities in the Tri-County area, we're one of the first departments. We volunteered to be one of the first departments to train. So now we have trained the trainers. Now we'll go out and help train other departments. Trainers. So it's mutually beneficial for everybody, for the community as a whole.
So thank you, Chief.
Public Works Department, y'all remember as part of our CAL FIRE grant, we got a grant to swap out our equipment. And so we just took, Rod just went out and got all of our new electric landscaping equipment. So it's still a little noisy. It's not as noisy as gas. It's really neat stuff. We are the only city that I know of, certainly in Monterey County, but definitely in the region, who are actually completely swapped out and using electric leaf blowers, electric weed whackers, electric chainsaws, all of that. So it's energy efficient, it's much quieter. And we're the beta testers for everybody. Because everybody else has one or two and they use them occasionally. But they're all looking to see now. We also have the first all electric lawnmower. So all the rest of the jurisdictions around us are looking to us to see what our experience is going to be on that. So we'll be sharing with them, and Ron will be talking about his counterparts. And then the last two things, so we're going to have an intern for a couple of weeks. We have a staff member's daughter who's a local high school student who needs community service hours. So she's going to be carrying out for a few weeks. Should be great. So if you're in City Hall, come by, say hi. Also, you all probably know right now, we have a vacancy. We did a job placement for recruitment for the permanent clerk, deputy city clerk position. We received 230 something applications. Great. It was through Indeed, so a lot of those people just applied for everything and weren't really qualified, but Karen did a great job of going through and calling that down to a manageable amount, doing interviews. The chief is helping with the interviews for the first panel, and those are starting next Wednesday.
April 3rd, 4th, and 9th.
Right, yeah, so we're really excited. We got some really good applicants, and we're looking forward to having a new staff member. But in the interim, at least, we're going to be closing City Hall on Fridays to the public. We'll be here. Police department is open 24/7, so if you need the police department for anything, call 911, or you can call the non-emergency number. They're always available, but for all other functions, district functions, we'll be closed to the public on Fridays so that Karen can have some sanity time and get caught up on some things. And so we can just maintain some sanity in the office. So, and we may keep that going forward. We'll see. We'll see how we go. And then the last thing, for anybody who doesn't know, Earth Day / ice cream social in the park on April 20th. I'm hoping the weather is good, but not as good as it was last year. Last time we had a park party, everybody went to the beach because it was 85 degrees. So we want 72 degrees, perfect. So, but if you're in town, definitely come down. It is a very fun event, and we have a lot of vendors who will be there. Sustainable will be there. M1 Water will be there. Cal-Am will be there, and they all have lots of goodies for you, along with information. You can get low flow shower heads, low flow hose attachments. Cal-Am will be handing out free bags of mulch for your garden, so come down and take advantage of that. Thank you.
Okay. For those that regularly drive South Boundary Road, you probably noticed that we have a problem with illegal dumping out there. And it's a problem throughout the entire county. But I would just like to take a moment to thank the chief and all your officers and Ron Pucci for enforcing the rules out there and resulting in catching 2 offenders just recently. And I think that the word is getting out, that if you dump in Del Rio, you're gonna get caught. And they have remained diligent out there, and I know that's a tough situation to get a hold of, and you guys are doing a great job, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The city council reports are in the packet as well as correspondence. And with that, the next meeting will be, yes.
Can I stick my toe in the water for 1 minute? I promise I won't read any rules. Most of you know my wife Susan. We're having a great Earth Day celebration here on the 20th. Sustainable Seaside is doing theirs on the 21st. She's in charge of the trashing show. I have been genuinely recruited. I am actively recruiting any city official, person, whatever, to come do just a quick segment. You can make an outfit out of any kind of recycled materials you want. Cue up a song, you can do a little boogie, you can do a little whatever, wave by and wave your hand. But I will be reaching out to all the city council members and the planning commission. If y'all wanna do 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I'll send you the flyers. And my wife asked me to do it and I said I would, so I'm efficient. And it's in the records. It's fine. Thank you. I don't think I'm booking. No, good.
Okay, our next meeting is April 23rd, and with that, we are adjourned.